RE100 is alive and it returns with a long-awaited mobile suit, the Den'an Gei from Mobile Suit Gundam F91. Being the perfect candidate for this line, a UC mobile suit that is too obscure to get a master grade, the Den'an Gei is a unique grunt suit from the late UC era, featuring a tight, compact but powerful design. This is the first plastic model for this mobile suit, and does it do it justice? And why does this have to be another P-Banda exclusive? Let's get on to the unboxing. Released in October 2025 for 3,300 yen in Premium Bandai, we have the RE100, yes you heard it, it is back, the RE100 XM02 Den'an Gei from Mobile Suit Gundam F91. Looking at the box art, the CG render has no credited illustrator. The box is pretty tiny for a 1/100 kit, but if you do know the lore, the size of it in the lore, you'd understand why. Compared to a thicker HD box, it is a bit thinner, but it is wider. Here are the sides, nothing really notable, just the name of the mobile suit and some legal stuff. And this is what it would look like in your pile of shame. Opening up the box, we have 1, 2, 3, 4 bags of runners and the manual. The manual is kind of weird in size. I've never seen a manual that's this long and thin. Here's it compared to an HD manual. We then have the runner list, which we only have 2 unused parts, which is pretty good. The rest of the instructions are nothing notable. This does come with decals, so there is a decal guide. And we have the color chart. For the runners included with the kit, we have a total of 11, all in polystyrene, so no polycaps in this build. 10 of the runners are manufactured and labeled Den'an Gei made in 2025. And the last runner is the SV19 runner containing the clear parts. We then get a small sheet of metallic stickers for the sensors and a small sheet of sticker decals, unfortunately not water slides. That's it for the contents, let's get to the build. Beginning with the build, we have the torso. The torso and mostly the mobile suit overall has an HG-like construction, but more akin to the more modern and more complex HGs. We have a shoulder articulation gimmick. Despite the lower parts count, we do get great color separation and pretty nice details. We also then get an option part for the cockpit, though there's no actual cockpit gimmick, which is expected because this is not a master grade. Next is the head, which is fairly simple. We get a sticker for the clear part. We have a nice face piece for that World War I gas mask looking aesthetic. The design is very unique, but the construction is very simple and we do get a seam line. Now for the arms, they are very simplistic in terms of the engineering. They do have an asymmetrical look going for it. Despite being simple, it is still pretty good because there's no seam lines. It seems to have nice articulation and good part separation. Now for the legs, which is actually more complicated than most HGs, but still very simple though compared to like a master grade or even a full mechanics kit. The build kind of reminds me of the MG Jagan. The engineering is good, there are some seams, but they are made of spanner lines, which is completely fine. The details and part separation is nice with the textured tubing at the back, and we actually don't get any fancy joints included, but it does the job well and it looks good while doing it. Now for the waist, which is usually the more simpler parts, but this one actually has pretty good features. It has a hip dropping mechanism, full articulation for all of the skirts, though there is no frame underneath the armor for the skirts, so they're pretty hollow. So this is the case where a master grade would have frame underneath the armor. Now for the backpack, there's really not much to talk about. It's pretty much just a huge block of green with no moving parts, individual thrusters though, which is nice. Now for the weapons, they are pretty basic. The rifle is pretty much just a sandwich build with a bad seam line in the middle. Also, the side handle is also fixed with no articulation, which is kind of awkward to pose in the future. Overall, it's a great build. I do want to know that this is my first RE100 kit, which is kind of weird since I built so many kits already. But I was expecting something similar to a upscaled high grade. This is pretty much it. And there's really nothing wrong with that. The details and the part separation is well done with minimal parts. Very smart and efficient work by Bandai. We don't have an inner frame, but that's okay because you only really notice it here in the front skirts and the side skirts, which are just single pieces. But again, most people won't see that. The build is solid while being handled, no finicky or loose parts. It's not anything mind-blowing, but it's just well executed, so I can't really complain. Okay, here's it out of the box with no additional modifications. The design is very unique. It's kind of like the Zaku 2 of the F91 series, with the Den'an Zon being the Zaku 1. Compared to the line art, they really nailed the proportions of the Kunio Okawara design, which I do respect because they usually modernize his proportions when it comes to translating it into model kit form. Though it's kind of weird that the colors of the Den'an Gei is very inconsistent with the line art and different illustrations of it. The green of the model kit is greener than that of the line art, and the main gray is a bit cooler. It is also a bit inconsistent with the Robot Spirits figure, which is less saturated in color scheme. Speaking of which, I do prefer this kit's proportions over the figure, which the figure just looks a bit off to me. Getting onto the flaws of the aesthetics, beginning with the seam lines. We have a seam line here at the head, pretty nasty one actually. We have a minor one in the backpack, some minor ones in the torso. one at the back of the foot, and the rest of the seam lines are part of the design, like the thighs and the calves. For color accuracy, it's very good news. You only get the missing insides of all the thrusters and vents throughout the mobile suit. They have to be in this sort of red. So this is definitely another thing where if it was a master grade, we would have separate pieces for all the vents. But it's a very easy fix because you can just paint it, no big deal really. Size comparisons wise, this kit is small, even for small mobile suit standards. It is only 13.9 meters in lore. So even the smaller mobile suits in the series like the F91, which is 15.2, here's a comparison. Thank you, Schizophonic 9. I don't have one in hand, sorry. So in 100 scale, it's 13.9 centimeters. Here's it compared to a 1144 scale, RX78. So it's almost the same height. And here's it with the HGGM slope. And here's it next to a 1100 mg standard sized one, the RX78, which just dwarfs it. Overall, he might be very small, but he does look good and is a faithful representation of the original Okawara design. Minimal work is required to make it look good and will be definitely enough for most fans of this mobile suit. Here's what the RE100 Den'an Gei comes with out of the box. We have 3 hands, a beam rifle, 2 beam sabers, some beam effect parts, some additional foot armor to replicate the scene in the anime, some cockpit optional part, and an action base adapter. For both hands, they attach via ball joint. We have a holding fist, and for the right hand, we have a trigger finger hand for the rifle. Taking a look at the beam rifle, it is pretty simple. It does have a pretty bad seam line at the middle. There's a sticker for the sensor. Neither handle can move, unfortunately. Though holding it, it's very simple. You just sandwich it onto the trigger finger hand. It holds solidly, no issues, but there is no way to store this onto the mobile suit. Now for the beam shield. The effect part is not UV reactive, unfortunately. It attaches onto the forearm. You just attach it in between these 2 pieces. It's a bit awkward to pose due to its really big size, but you get lots of ways to rotate it and maneuver it around, and it holds it pretty solid. Again, no way to store this, though this is a beam effect part that's normal. For the beam sabers, we have 2 handles and we have 2 effect parts. The effect parts is standardly just attached via a peg. Then to hold it, you use the holding hand, which has a slot for the beam saber handle, and it holds it pretty securely. It has no weight issues, of course. Sadly, there's no way to store this into the mobile suit again. Now for the foot covers to replicate the scene in the anime, well, they're just foot covers, so they just slot onto the pegs underneath the foot. No issues with them falling off at all, so yeah, if you want that, it's there. Then we have some optional cockpit part if you want it in green. The decals does come with the Crossbone Vanguard sticker decal, 2 of them for either one of your choice, depending on which cockpit you decide to put on. Then lastly, we have an action base adapter, which is an action base adapter. It attaches onto the bottom of the waist, pretty simple. It also is pretty solid, so you can place it in an action base, no problem. Overall, the accessories kind of feel more like an afterthought. I do wish that the beam rifle had no seam line and the handles were a bit adjustable. It does come with everything it needs to come with out of the box if you look at the lore. I do wish that we had more ways to store the beam sabers and the rifle, because if you're not using them, you just have to put them in the box along with the feet covers. And of course, I wish we had some more hand options. It's kind of limited with only 3. Could have had an open hand or like a closed fist. Again, this is a RE100 kit, so you can't really expect too much from it, but it's still a shortcoming that I like to mention. To the articulation, the head is double jointed with a ball at the top of the neck. The shoulder can swing back and forth with that articulation gimmick. The shoulder armor can move individually. Sideways arm raise is 90 degrees. We have a 360 at the arm, 360 at the upper bicep, 360 at the forearm as well. Double jointed elbow, ball jointed hands, torso ab crunch forward and back is great. Side to side is also very good. 360 at the waist, and doing the torso wiggle test, it can do it pretty well. Front skirts are individually articulated. Side skirts have some movement as well. The back flap can be moved out of the way for a backward kick. Speaking of which, we have a good 90-degree forward kick, and the same thing for the back kick, 90 degrees. We also have a 90-degree sideward leg raise, 360 thigh rotation, double jointed knee bend, very good. Foot rotation is good. Downward ankle bend is good, not great. Better upward movement though. Inward and outward bend is decent, and the backpack has no other movement. So the articulation of this kit is very solid. No real red flags, besides maybe the foot if you're getting really nitpicky, but everything else is good or great, which is impressive for a grunt. They usually get the shorter end of the stick, but here you won't be disappointed at all. It won't do any crazy poses like a God Gundam, but for this design, the articulation is more than serviceable. Okay, let's summarize this into my likes and dislikes. First of all, the build is solid. I had no random parts falling off. I had no loose joints. Nothing was super finicky, so overall pretty good build. For my first dislike is there are some flaws on the aesthetics. We are missing some colors, which not too much of a big deal because it's very easy to paint over, but there are some pretty nasty seam lines, especially on the weapons and some of the armor like the head. That leads me to my second like, which is the aesthetics are still pretty on point considering the simplicity of the build. You don't have any color correcting stickers at all. The seam lines I mentioned are all pretty fixable, and they just did such a good job translating the original Okawara design into model kit form without losing its charm, so it definitely looks good. My next dislike is definitely the accessories. They're kinda of an afterthought. Despite being complete, a lot of them just feel kinda lacking in terms of the gimmicks. There's no way to store them, and we really lack some hand options. I really wish they gave us more hands. Lastly, the articulation is so good for this design, for a grunt suit especially, and how simple the engineering is. The articulation just works. You can do most poses that you'd ever need, so definitely a good posable kit. Now the question is, should you buy this kit? Well, if you can find it for SRP, definitely this is a really good kit. It's only 3,300 yen, so if you can get this for that price or around that price, it's definitely worth it. Though temper your expectations, this is not a master grade, this is a RE100 kit. It's a very simple build. Don't expect to be mind blown by the engineering, but this is a good representation of a mobile suit that really didn't get any love in terms of model kits. This is the first plastic model kit of this mobile suit. So if you're a fan of this mobile suit, this is your main option besides the figures and the resin B-Club thing that's probably incredibly hard to find. So definitely get this if it comes out on pre-order or if you can find it for a cheap price. So are you buying this kit? What are your thoughts on the model kit? Leave it in the comments below. If you found this helpful, feel free to like, and if you aren't subscribed, please subscribe. And as always, thank you for your time. Bye!